Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at Ambush Sword. This is a deck I checked out pretty much a month ago since this last video went up. So obviously this deck has not changed much. You're still running all the standard stuff and it still does exceptionally well if you are looking for quick, easy games. If you are just looking to go face and forget, this is the kind of deck for you. Usually your games will last about 5 to 6 turns. At that point you're either lost or you've won. They're really the only two options with this deck. There isn't much of a middle ground, so we're going to get right into it and check this deck out. There really isn't a lot to it. Of course, running all of the ambushes and storms that you can, along with a couple of buffs. So we'll get into the games and we'll get right to it. So our first matchup is Sword versus Sword. Not a shocking matchup. I mean, Sword versus Sword is a pretty common one overall, so why not? And we have plenty of options. I mean, going into this first turn, we're basically going to be able to curve out perfectly. You always want to be aiming for your 1-drops where possible, as they will secure you a lot of damage in that early game. As you can see here, we're going for some pretty nice damage. Getting that couple of damage to face. And Princess Juliet lines up nicely. I did keep the Goblin and the Quick Blade, basically it's just the alt form, to go face, because why not? We're going to be able to keep those till next turn, so we may as well hold on to them. If we get a 2-drop at all, we've got an awesome hand, and we do. So we're going to be able to flood this board completely and push just a couple more damage to the face as we set up for our turn 5 Kunoichi Master. Kunoichi Master is one of the key cards to this deck. It really does present a lot of damage that is nearly unbeatable in most situations. Of course, there are situations like Dragon that can really knuckle down on it, or even Haven, but those two are really the only two that have a great way to deal with it. So we're going to be able to go face consistently here. Goblin even gets a nice little boost on him. It would have been a little bit harder if we didn't make that draw to get the double Juliet out, which isn't bad at all. And we've still got our Kunoichi Master as our nice little setup card. Of course, they are going to remove pretty much everything here, and we are forced to remove the 4/4 with the 1/1, unless we draw into something that will allow us to somehow get around that. Unfortunately, that isn't something I really want to get around it, so looks like we're just going to play the Kunoichi because it does set up a lethal next turn, and playing against Sword, there isn't much they can do. And also knowing that even if they do play another ward, our Council of Card Knights would allow us to end this game. So there wasn't too much that would have been a big threat to us. Maybe 2 wards would have been a problem, but everything else we could have easily killed off. And now on to the next match. This one is against Dragon. As I mentioned, this is one of the harder matchups because they can run quite a few removal cards. Those removal cards are usually AoE based or random targeted based, which does kill our ambushes pretty well. So we are just looking to do as much pressure as possible. That's really the only game plan for this deck. Just continually pump out damage until they really can't handle any more. As I mentioned, the worst matchup's definitely Haven so far. I found that Haven tends to be the one that I have the most trouble with due purely to the Tenko variants that are running around lately. If they drop Tenko on fuller, then it's pretty much game over. Also, healing really janks up this deck because damage is exceedingly important. So we do get our nice set of pings, just kind of going face with those, hitting them hard. And again, they don't really do much, so we're not too concerned with actually just keep going face. So Angelic Knight plus Wise Merman does give us a nice extra boost of 2 damage this turn, on top of our standard 5 that we had. And it allows us to go super wise, setting up for our Sky Commander Celia. Fortunately, as you just saw there, Force of the Dragon Newt does end up removing us, which is a little annoying. And here is kind of a play that I kind of regret making. With seeing that Force of Dragon Newt, I didn't expect to have an immediate follow-up one. Unfortunately, I did. If I had have predicted that, I would have put an Evolve down, which is what I should have done to begin with, because then I could have still guaranteed lethal. I did luckily draw our Roundtable Assembly, which allowed us to go for double Juliet, which got us lethal anyway, but that did require a bit more luck than actually strategic setup like my last turn could have. And this will be the last game for the video, and it is Haven. So I did include probably the 2 worst matchups for me, just because I really wanted to be able to cover those, and they happen to be matches that I was actually able to win, even if it was just through a little bit of luck. So I do decide to dump the entire hand, looking for something lower. Unfortunately, we get all 3 and 4 drops. Nothing useful there in the early game, at least not at this stage. Of course, the 2 drop does make things a little bit better, but it's still going to be tight. So there we go. The Fallen gets us a single ping, which is why I quite enjoy that card. And Gemstone Carapace isn't a problem, so Angelic Knight does get the opportunity to be played, which sets up a nice little ward and gives just that little bit of extra reach with dealing with this opponent. And there is White Fang Temple, so their healing has already started. If they are able to drop Tenko next turn, then we are in for some trouble. Luckily, Vagabond Frog is not a bad play. It isn't immune to Tenko, but if they waste their entire turn on Tenko, they're only going to at most kill 2 things. Fortunately, they go for Priest, which means that our Frog is safe this turn, so we can actually use him to our advantage. So we can go for a quite nice 3 damage and set up Kunoichi Master as another ambush. So we're going to have enough ambushes that it's going to be very hard to remove these, as even dropping Tenko now, we'll probably still only get a single ping to actually hit one of these followers. So at most they would remove 1 thing, and with Sky Commander Celia and an Evolve, our only risk would have been a ward, and luckily we didn't see that. So pretty quick and easy games. So this sword deck always makes for very quick videos. If you do want to check more of this deck out, you can check out my last video, of course, about this deck. It was pretty much exactly a month ago. It's like the last sword video I'd actually done. I haven't done a sword video for such a long time because I lack a lot of the mid-sword components and only really had enough to do a deck like this. So if you did enjoy it, please hit that like button and subscribe. As always, the deck list will be in the description below, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.